Hey you guys, pleasure to be back with you. If you joined it for the first time, welcome. It's a pleasure to see all of you guys and girls out there in spirit. I wanted to do a video to follow up the live performance tips and tricks that I did for the SP-404 MK2. I couldn't leave out my producers, beat makers, and studio rats. I wanted to do a workflow and tips and tricks video for you guys, or for us rather. I think these tips will really help your workflow. These are things that I do. You can use it or you don't have to use it. I just wanted to put it out there. A lot of it you may know, some of it you may have never heard of. Maybe you know it and maybe you forgot. I just want to be able to share it with you guys. So let's get right into it. Tip number one, let's say you guys are messing around with a sample. You got your sample here. You're on the pitch speed and you don't want to necessarily keep playing the sample from the beginning to the end. You want to just make sure the sample is looping properly and you want to make sure your endpoint is edited properly. In order to do that, hit the roll key and it'll take you to the end of the sample immediately. If you go ahead and hit the loop key, it'll loop for you. And then you know if you have a perfect loop. Tip number two, if you get that pop in your sample, you can't get rid of it, you turn on the zero cross point snapping by pressing resample. And it should smooth out the sample and get rid of the snaps, the pop. Tip number three, I don't even use the record in the SP-404 because to me, in my opinion, it's just too many steps. This is what I do. You can use it or you can not use it. I just want to share. Pressing external pad, going through my samples, then pressing record and choosing the pad. To me, that's too many steps when I'm in a creative process. I like everything to be quick. I like it to be smooth so I can move on to the next thing and it won't be so time consuming. I use skip back, and the skip back function to me is just a quicker workflow. For instance, I can go ahead and do what I'm doing. You'll notice the mark key is flashing. So I'll hit mark and everything I did is already there. I just hit record, choose a pad. I'm done. Tip number four, you're going through your samples, you're seeing what you have, what you like, and you make some changes to your sample. Okay, you make some changes to your sample, you slow it down or whatever. Let's say you don't like that. You hit shift 6. It'll actually, if you want to reset your parameters, you choose OK. And then when you go back, it'll be back to its default settings. Tip number five, let's say you're a producer or a beat maker, musician, whatever it is, and you like to use the same sounds and percussion in a lot of your projects to help create your sound. Take these sounds here that I have. Say I like to use these sounds and damn, I want to start another project, but I want to use these sounds. No problem. So you just copy these sounds to another project. And how you do that is you hit copy, exit. So I want to transfer this bank, this entire bank. So I'm going to hit bank D. That's the bank that I want to transfer. Project 16. If you look to your top right, you'll see project 16. And I want to copy it to bank E in project 16. So I hit E and then I go ahead and I hit copy. Now, if I go to project 16, bank E, those sounds are there for me to go ahead and start my new project. All right, tip number 6. I use this next tip kind of like the hot swap feature in Ableton. It doesn't quite work the same because you have to actually stop the program to change the drums, but it's just a workaround when dealing with the SP. Let's say you have a beat going and you're just going through the beat, seeing how you feel, how you like the vibe. Not a masterpiece, just for example purposes. And let's say you don't like that snare. I don't really like that snare. It doesn't fit the vibe of this track. So you stop the program, and let's try that snare. So I'm gonna hit shift, pad number 5, and I'm gonna swap this snare for this snare, and I hit copy. Now that snare is there in the program, and let's see what that sounds like. I like that better. So for a little hop swap feature with the SP-404, you can use the exchange pad option. Tip number 7 is part of the start stop looping feature in the start stop menu. If you don't have loop selected, C2 knob will always be off when you go into the start end menu. C1 will be the start of the sample, C3 will be the end, but C2 will be off. When you press loop, C2 is now on as the loop marker. The loop marker is C2. So normally when you adjust the point, that loop moves with the loop marker moves with the. So if you don't want that to happen, let's say you set a loop. So now, let's say you wanted your loop point there, your loop marker there, right there in the middle. You hit remain, and now the loop marker will stay. It won't move with the start of the sample. No matter how far you move the start point, it won't go past the loop. Tip number 8, when you're in the start end menu, you have a start point and an end point, as you can see. So if you zoom in, you can always access the start of the sample by pressing mark, or the end. Here in the bottom of the screen, if you look closely, you'll see the M, and it'll tell you where you are because it'll be marked next to that M at the bottom of the screen. Start of the sample, end of the sample. Start, end of the sample. Tip number 9, working on a project and you got a whole bunch of samples and you just want to start from scratch. You want to clear out a whole bank. Delete, exit, and it'll ask you on the top of the screen, delete bank 7, yes, and you hit delete. The operation is completed. All sounds are deleted out of the bank. Tip number 10, if you're a finger drummer, you may like to access multiple pads, have the same sound on multiple pads to kind of finger drum. Sub pad always plays the last sound that you hit. So if I hit that, now it's the sub pad, and you can, if I hit this, sub pad always plays the last sound of the pad played. Tip number 11, if you're editing your sample, and now you want to go to the end, you see how the cursor jumps? To avoid the cursor from jumping like that, you hold shift as you edit your start and end points. And when you turn the C1 knob for start, it actually zooms in, and it'll hold the cursor steady until you're ready to actually move it. It won't jump. And the same applies to the end as well. So if you hit your end point, you can hold shift and turn the C3 knob, and it will zoom in until you get to your desired magnification, and you can let the shift go, and then you can go ahead and edit your end point. So you can also achieve the same thing with the value knob, but if you want to do it while you edit the sample, you hold shift, zoom in, let shift go, and then turn the knob. Tip number 12, if you're working on drums and you may want your drums in mono, you go into pitch speed, you hold down shift, and you turn the C3 knob all the way to the left or all the way to the right for a mono signal. Earlier, we discussed using skip back as a quicker option when you're going through your samples or you're trying to find ideas. It's just a quicker workflow. Some of us like our layout a certain way. Maybe we like to use the pads on the bottom half of the machine, and maybe we don't want to have to go to the top here to the menu buttons. we can actually change the sub pad to our skip back button if that's what you want to do. And you do that by going into the menu, hit Shift, pad 13, system, and you scroll down to sub pad and you change it from retrigger to skip back. You exit out, and now you'll see sub pad is blinking. You hit sub pad, record, choose a pad. And that's about it, guys, in a nutshell. So that's going to bring me to the end of this video. I hope these tips and tricks help. And as usual, until the next time, keep creating. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.